Okay, so I've drawn the straw to go first. So I'm Jesrine and I worked as a learning technologist at the University of Sheffield. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we've used PebblePad to sort of streamline our OSCE assessments, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. So wait for the slide to move. So I work for the Health Sciences School, which is a newly formed school that formed in about 2019. And it's made up of 3 divisions: nursing and midwifery, speech and language therapy, orthoptics and ophthalmology. And prior to that, we all worked separately. We had different systems, so we were keen to sort of work together and sort of align our processes a little bit more. But one of the things we had in common is that we all ran OSCEs. And for those of you that don't know what an OSCE is, it stands for Objective Structured Clinical Exam. And it's a type of assessment that's quite widely used in medical education, and it basically allows students to practice or demonstrate clinical skills using like a standardized medical scenario, and it often has multiple stations. So the problem we had is pre-COVID, we used paper-based assessment forms, and these tended to be time-consuming, they were inefficient, it took a lot of admin support to get it all set up, and we wanted to sort of develop more sustainable practices that were less wasteful. We also wanted to sort of improve the way we shared feedback with students, particularly formative feedback. And obviously with the paper ones, they had to be scanned in before they could be shared with students. So there was often a delay in getting their feedback to the students. So the other thing that we were keen to do is to ensure that students received immediate feedback for formative assessments, particularly because of the type of assessment they're doing. We were keen to sort of ensure that they could improve their clinical practice, safety and competence, and also prepare for their summative assessment. So that was one of our sort of key goals there. So the challenge we had is that we wanted to find a digital platform that would allow us to assess OSCEs in real time, that would allow us to standardise our processes across the different divisions, allow that sort of transparency and sharing of feedback to the students, and obviously look at something that was a bit more efficient and sustainable. So I'd had a little play with assessor-initiated assessments before, but I'd never used it in practice, never had time to do anything with it. So we were hoping that that might be a solution. And what we did is we had a 2-day digital retreat where we had academics and learning technologists, and it gave us that perfect opportunity to sort of explore it a little bit further. And the solution turned out to be PebblePad. And the reason we chose that platform is because we'd already got it in the university at the time, and it was already linked to our VLE, so it meant it automatically pulled in the students and the staff, so we didn't have to buy any sort of bespoke design system for OSCEs, and we could assess students in real time. So this is an example of one of our paper assessment forms and what they used to look like. And what we did in the retreat is we collated all our sort of assessment forms, we looked at the similarities and the differences, we looked at how that might translate and work in PebblePad, and we sort of made little amendments and things where necessary. So this is an example of one of our marking templates, and it's basically made up of multiple rubrics. They're all assessor-only fields, and you can see that there's a little total under each rubric, and basically the assessor just ticks off and sort of marks them as they go along. And then further down, there is an area for them to put the total score, so they have to sort of add up the rubrics. Then they determine the outcome, whether it was a pass or a fail. And then there's a space further down to provide the student with some feedback on how they did on that OSCE station. So in practice, how this works is that I then load the templates onto a PebblePad workspace. It pulls the students and the staff in. You can see this one's got 5 stations, and we've used the sort of multi-assignment setup. Then you get a list of the students, and to start assessing, they just basically click Generate Submission, and that brings the template up for that station for that student. So this is what one of the marked templates looks like, and you can see at the bottom it's got the little total for each section, and all the assessor has to do is ensure that they save it. I've had a few that didn't. And then once they close the tab, it returns to the list of students, and then they can obviously start to assess the next student. So obviously with every system there are some drawbacks. We found that some of the assessors didn't like the fact that they had to manually add up the total from the rubrics, and they would like that to do it for the whole page. Fair enough. And it's also dependent on Wi-Fi, so if the Wi-Fi goes, we have to revert back to paper because obviously it doesn't work. We've also had a lot of discussion about whether to share feedback for summative assessments because they're worried that it'll compromise future assessments because students will see the whole criteria. So at the minute, we're only doing it for formative and summative assessments. We have to manually extract that and just take the feedback and the final grade. So the jury's out on that one. They're still not sure which way to go with it. And we recently found another problem where it's only happened once or twice, but students have found a way to nosy into Atlas and found the workspace prior to the assessment and potentially may have seen the marking sheet. So we don't know if that's a big problem yet. It's only happened a couple of times. I can see Shane's trying to work out how that happened. I was like that too. But on the whole, it's worked really well, and the assessors have all given us really good feedback. They've said it's easy to use, it saved time and paper. They preferred it to paper, which was a surprise to me. They mentioned the bit about the auto rubrics and that they did like that, even though it didn't do the total. And obviously, the Wi-Fi was an issue. In terms of the students, they've only had formative feedback released through PebblePad, but again, they said it was easy to find. They thought the feedback was clear and concise, and they really appreciated the immediacy of getting their feedback so that they could prepare for their summative assessment. Nearly near the end. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Thank you. So I hope you've enjoyed learning about how we've used PebblePad, and that was hard work. Thank you.